It's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by one of the founders of SJM Boxing, Adam Morallee. Adam, how are you?
I'm good, Danny. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I have to ask, is it Morallee or Morallee? Because that seems to be
Morally,
how all the boxers say it.
morally wrong.
Yeah, like morally bankrupt,
Morally
which will be the
bankrupt.
headline one day. Hopefully not.
Hopefully
Um,
not.
yeah, but they all say Morallee, don't they? Like Joe Joyce, Johnny Fisher.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Say it so many times, but maybe it reads like that.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, how's things? How's everything going in Planet
Yeah, good.
SJM?
Um, this time of the year, obviously, no fights on, and we're just really plotting and planning for the first quarter of next year. Actually, trying to get dates in for the fighters. Still, the promoters are very active and working on shows. So it's a really interesting time of year, actually, because there's a lot of business happening right now because the shows aren't on and everyone's plotting and planning. So that's really good.
So 2022, you've had what Florian Marco's homecoming. That was a big deal. Joe Joyce, now the WBO Interim champion. Great
Yeah.
position. How would you sum up the year as a whole for SJAM and its fighters?
I think it was great. Listen, it's not all about the O, right? But it is good to go through another year undefeated. And that's important. And that's testament to the effort we put into matchmaking. And then you get fighters to a certain level and you have to step them up, but you want to step them up in winnable fights. And then there comes a time, a relatively young company. And when we took most of our boxers on, apart from one or two of them, we took them on, like Florian and Lerone, we took them on as prospects. They made their pro debuts with us. So, yeah, of course, in the first few years, you can get people, to 10-0, 15-0 by fighting various different sorts of people who aren't great, but we've never wanted that. And a lot of our prospects have had tough fights in their first 10 fights. So, yeah, it's really, really good year. I think for our younger guys, it's been excellent. They've really, really progressed. You've seen the emergence of people like Junaid Boston, Tommy Fletcher. Junaid's like very exciting. Tommy Fletcher is now on kind of the BT main broadcast. They really like him. I think that's what you've got to do as a manager. You've got to try and make promoters fall in love with your boxers. And he's appealing to the casuals. That's great. We've had people like John Hedges step up and show what he's got about him. I think next year's a big year for Soul Dakers, actually. Really, really big year for Soul. He's going to step up. So I think next 2023, going to be very hard to get out of that year undefeated. Very hard to get out of that year unscathed. I think, fingers crossed Joe Joyce is going to fight Tyson Fury. So, yeah, if I'm sat here next year undefeated, wow, that'd be unbelievable.
Well, most recently, Fury saying he wants to fight both Usyk and Joyce next year. I mean, we might say something completely different tomorrow, but it's looking good. I mean, do you expect the undisputed fight to happen next?
I do. I do expect it to happen. I think there's a big will on both sides. I think both sides are very well represented, if you know what I mean, very sensibly represented. Alex Krasuk, Gigas Klimas on one side, George Warren, top rank, Frank Warren on the other side. I think that fight will happen. I really hope for their sake it happens. And then after that, you've seen a lot of talk about mandatories and who comes first and what happens first. From my perspective, I think it's all just posturing. In reality, it's people probably with an opinion on the undisputed fight trying to make political maneuvers. I think undisputed will happen, and I think the winner, which will probably be Tyson Fury, will vacate a lot of those belts.
Now, I spoke to Joe earlier this week, and I'll pose the same question to you as I did to him. How do you go about matching him for his next fight? Because he's not going to wait around for the undisputed. You want him out in the spring
Yeah.
of 2023. You don't want to risk his position too much, but at the same time, you want to keep him sharp. So, what sort of
Yeah.
opponent are you looking at?
Someone in the WBO top 15, because we want to defend the interim title, number one. And then you go through that list, and some people aren't going to fight you because they're tied up or whatever. And yeah, you're right. We don't want to. I see that personally, as Joe's manager, I want him to fight Tyson Fury the fight after next. So in my mind, we've got to be preparing right now for that Tyson Fury fight. It's not signed, it's not done. But I think that's the mindset we've got to have. We've got to be looking at fighting Tyson Fury in the summer. And so this fight that occurs in March has to be not necessarily a stepping stone, but has to be good preparation for that fight. It's got to be of the right level and can't take it for granted. But with that fight in the offing, yeah, absolutely, we need the right opponent. And, you know, working very closely with the Warrens, I work very closely with the Warrens on matchmaking. And we've got 2 or 3 really good options. And I think one of them will come through quite soon, actually. I'm really happy with the options.
No hints on that?
No, I don't want to jeopardize. I don't want to jeopardize anything, Danny. I don't want to jeopardize anything. But then, look, I mean, people know the names, and there's a lot of opponents at that level, kind of that, what would you call it, kind of fringe world level, that a lot of people want to fight. I mean, you think who's out? You think someone like Anthony Joshua, like who's he going to go for as next opponent if it's not Dillian White? He wants someone at that level. There's a lot of boxers out there. That's a level where boxers who are of a certain level can make a lot of money because they become very important opponents for people like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and, you know, hopefully into that conversation now, Joe Joyce.
What did you make, and this is a bit of a tangent, but what did you make of Joseph Parker, who fought Joe most recently, now going in with a cruiserweight in Jack Massey?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I didn't foresee it myself.
It's very
I
left field.
think, yeah, look, I think Joe needs a fight. He's with Boxer and Sky. He needs a fight. He needs a comeback fight, and then they've probably got, you know, big plans for him after that. And I think sometimes you see this, in boxing where someone wants a fight to, you know, make them more confident again, give them a win, and so from the manager's perspective, you're looking to kind of tone it down a bit sometimes, but then the fans don't like it. I don't know what people have made of that fight. It doesn't look. It's a bit, you know. I know Joe Parker pretty well. I'm sure he'd agree that Massey is a completely different fight to Joe Joyce. But it's part of a plan that Joe will have with his management to step up. And I think Joseph Parker can really, really do things at the world level still. And so I think his fight after that will probably be a very high level fight.
You mentioned Lerone Richards earlier. What does the future hold for him? I know he was injured, didn't make his last fight, of course, with Zach
Yeah.
Chelli. But surely his ambitions extend beyond, and no disrespect to Zach Chelli, but beyond the English title at least.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, Lerone was never boxing for the English title. He was not boxing for the WBO European title either. Lerone was, you know, having a 10-round super middleweight fight against Zach Chelli. And no disrespect to Zach Chelli, I think he's a very good boxer, but Lerone is looking at the world level. You know, beat Carlos Gongora, who a lot of people, who beat Ali Akhmedov, and a lot of people wouldn't want to box. Lerone is a world level fighter. He has not had a good year in any level because he hasn't boxed, but he is promotionally free. He is getting lots of different offers. I still like that Zach Chelli fight for him, actually. He's having a bit of time off with his family now, but I like that Zach Chelli fight for him. And I think there's 2 aspects for Lerone here. One aspect is climbing up the rankings, going up the different sanctioning bodies' rankings to go and get a world title. And the other is him increasing his profile more for not only hardcore fight fans, but casual fans. And a platform like Sky is really excellent for that. I was really, really disappointed when that fight didn't happen. I thought Lerone would have put in a great performance and really, really got that kind of Sky fan base behind him. If you remember when he fought Giovanni De Carolis and won the European title, put in a great performance, that was on Sky. He did a bit of singing afterwards. And I think that was kind of like, Lerone was really on the up there in terms of profile. And we want to get him back there. So it's about profile, but it's about ultimately for Lerone winning world titles. And out of all our boxers, I think he's one of the most talented.
And you talked about plotting for next year. Are we likely to see the stable expand at all?
Possibly. 1 or 2 more additions. There's a couple we're looking at. But I kind of like the size of it now. We can really give attention to people and focus on exactly what's right for them. We've got good relationships with the promoters. I mean, we've got people with Matchroom, Top Rank, Frank Warren, Pro Bellum, and Boxer, like all the promoters. We've got good relationships with them, good relationships with their matchmakers, but it's about time and effort. You know, I mean, you look at someone like Joe Joyce. He almost demands an entire team full-time himself because he's so close to the world level. And if he does have a massive fight against a Fury, for example, that's going to monopolize people's time. So I didn't set this up to manage tons and tons of people. Ultimately, our duty is to them and to give them all good management. And the more people you take on, the more you don't risk that, but it makes it harder. But there are one or two world level fighters that we're talking to that I'd love to help.
With the Joyce stuff that you just mentioned in mind, there's been a little bit of pushback against Fury Usyk, most likely taking place in the Middle East. Certainly, that's the front runner in terms of regions to stage it. Do you think a Fury Joyce fight in the summer, as you've talked about, would be more likely to take place in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think when you look at why these fights take place in the Middle East, it's because people in the Middle East who like boxing are prepared to pay big site fees because they're very, very glamorous fights, and it doesn't really get any more glamorous than Undisputed. I think when you're looking at the economics of a Fury Joyce fight, I think it sells out Wembley Stadium, and not just that. I think the way you do ticketing and kind of on-demand pricing and things like that, I think you can make a lot of money off the gate on that fight. One completely elite British level heavyweight against someone who's really trying to get into that bracket. And I think fight fans will love it. I think casuals will love it. I think it will land in the UK, and I think it should land in the UK.
How would you feel if Tyson Fury or Usyk, whoever wins, vacates the WBO title? Because Joe then becomes a world champion, automatically he's
Female
elevated.
champion.
Yeah,
Champion.
so it's kind of bittersweet. He'd be your first world champion in SJAM, if you don't include the IBO, no disrespect.
Yeah, thank you.
But he'd have won it not against the reigning champion. How would you feel?
I'll be delighted for Joe. I'll be absolutely delighted. He's a world champion. He'll be a heavyweight world champion for the rest of his life. Yeah, there will be people who point out that he's an email champion, but I think beating Joseph Parker in the manner he did can get your world title. That would be the person he beat to get the interim world title.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'd rather he didn't win it like that. I'd rather he won it in the ring.
But it's true what you say, because they were number one, number two, himself and Parker, when they fought. So if Fury had vacated earlier, that would have been the vacant title fight.
And no one would have complained about that, with beating Joseph Parker to win that title. I mean, Anthony Joshua became world champion beating Charles Martin back in 2015. And I think, Parker's a better level than that. Although I think Charles Martin is actually really on the comeback now.
Yeah, he's doing a lot better now. Much maligned Charles Martin, perhaps unfairly in some quarters. But all right, well, it's been good to catch up. Have an amazing Christmas and New Year, and let's do it again in January.
Nice one. Speak soon, Danny. See you later.
Take care.